Hi, everybody. Gene here. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping and EFT so you can eliminate self-sabotage and take the action that you want. If you have not done so already, I would encourage you to sign up for our 30-day tapping challenge. Even though we're in the middle of the month of November, still every single day, a new video is being put up that you can tap along to. If you go to tappingqa.com/30-day, that's tappingqa.com/30-day, you will find a place where you can get access to getting an email reminder every single day. All the videos are showing up on the website and the YouTube channel. And even if it is this late in the month and you're just signing up now, you will still have access to all of the videos from earlier in the month. tappingqa.com/30-day. This is Gene Montrose-Stelling. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 404, originally aired November 13th, 2019. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Today, we're going to talk about and tap about what happens and how we respond to when someone we love passes away. Before we do that, I want to thank all of the supporters of the Tapping Q&A podcast. There are lots of people all over the world who financially support the podcast so we can start transcribing things and making it easier for you to have access to the podcast on multiple platforms, because even though this is free for you to consume, it is not free to produce. It takes time, it takes energy, there's editors involved, and there's hosting to make sure that you can have access to this sort of stuff. And so that happens because of supporters. And I want to remind the supporters that with our 30-day tapping challenge, all of the audios of the videos that have been posted to the tapping challenge are also posted to the supporters page. So you can download those as MP3s and take them with you so you're not tethered to your screen if you want to tap along to them. The first 12 were delivered to you all at once at the beginning of the month. And for the rest of the month, every single day, you'll get access to a new tap along audio. If you would like access to all of those audios, support the podcast, and get some other amazing bonuses, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/support, and you will get all of the information on how you too can be a supporter of the podcast and how you can get those amazing bonuses. On the morning of October 20th, I received word that Dr. Pat Carrington had passed away. She was 95 years old. And for those of you who have been around the tapping world a little while, you might recognize her name. Pat was one of the original Founding EFT Masters. It was a short-lived program that Gary Craig had put together when he had originally created EFT and kind of made a group of people who went through training and said, these are gold standard people. And it was a useful thing in growing what was going on. Pat was part of that original group, but it wasn't her entree into complementary medicine. That Pat was writing scholarly articles and scholarly books on meditation and things of that sort all the way back into the 70s. And I had originally met Pat almost 12 years ago. And the way it came about was when I first created the Tapping Q&A website, which was originally called EFT Q&A. What I did was I had written an article that had got published in Gary Craig's original EFT newsletter, and it was published with my email address. And so lots of people started responding to me and asking me questions about my article and asking me questions about other things. And at this point, I was just a hobbyist. Like I literally was just like you, tapping to make my life a little bit better. And that's why I had been introduced to tapping. And as I started traveling and teaching it to other people, I had these experiences that I shared with Gary, that Gary then shared with his mailing list. And I had realized that as I was getting emails from listeners, that it was really inefficient replying to all of these people by email. And I thought, well, maybe I will just create a little website, thus the name EFT Q&A, where I would take those questions and I would answer them. So it wasn't just a one-to-one correspondence, but maybe other people would have a chance to learn from it. And so after creating my little website, what I did was I went through 1 year of Gary's newsletter And I got the email address of every single person who had published an email, had an article published in his email. And every single one of these people, it was about 250 people, every single one of them, I sent an email to that basically said, hey, I had something published. People asked me lots of questions. I'm answering them this way. I bet you've had the exact same experience. If you would like to be in a situation where you answer a question and we share it on this little website, I would love to hear from you. So I sent 250 emails over the course of a Wednesday. Over the course of the Thursday and the Friday, I received about 30 responses. 28 of the responses were super positive. One was super negative, which I immediately deleted. And one was from Dr. Pat Carrington, which was pretty amazing because I knew Pat's work. I had seen her on videos. I had studied her choices method. I was really amazed that this EFT Founding Master had taken time to email me. And it was a Friday afternoon, and I was standing in the Apple store in Towson, Maryland. It was the closest Apple store to where I lived at the time. And I was turning my computer over so it could be flown to Houston to be healed. This was back before they actually did repairs for Apple computers right in the store. And so as they're processing my computer and getting ready, making the decision that they need to send it away and doing all of the paperwork, I took a moment to check my email on one of the computers in the store because I hadn't had access to email for a little bit because my computer needed to be healed. And there is an email from Pat saying, I have to talk to you. And so I replied to the email saying, I don't have email access. Here is my cell phone number. Please give me a call. I would love to have a conversation with you. And so I'm excited because this person had reached out to me. She doesn't call. I'm disappointed. So Saturday morning, I wander over to Kinko's. I wander over to FedEx. And I use one of the computers in the store so I can check my email. And there are 5 frantic emails from Pat where she is trying to track me down. And I realized that dyslexic me had mistyped my own phone number. But she had given me her phone number. So I gave her a call. And she said that she was about to publish a book about tapping. And the article that I had written, the very, very first article I ever wrote for the website was how to make EFT routine, like how to get it into your day. And Pat said that she had an entire chapter on how to make tapping routine. And every single thing in my article was not in her chapter. And she asked if it would be okay if she could republish that article in her book, obviously giving me credit. And I was thrilled and I couldn't believe it. And then she said, so how come you write so well? And I said, I don't. I've received an email in the last 2 days saying, I know English isn't your first language because I screw up the pronouns in my own biography and switching between first person and second person as I was navigating all of that. And she said, no, you explain things really well. And I just shared with her my history and how I worked with young people and how I taught. And she asked, would you ever consider writing for my newsletter? And again, I could not believe someone I admired so much was asking me this. So over the course of the next 18 months, if Pat sent out an email that had 2 articles in it, one of those articles was hers and one was mine. And if she sent out an email that had 1 article in it, it was mine. And she started requesting specific topics, or she'd see things in my website and ask if she could reprint them on her newsletter. And what this did was this slowly started driving traffic to my website because this person, every single time she published my stuff, she gave my website out, which slowly started creating my mailing list, which slowly started creating my following. And so it is possible, and I've talked to some of you that this is the case, that the reason that you know I exist and you know my work exists is because of Pat. And the first 1,000 people who subscribed to my mailing list, I would give direct attribution to Pat and her sharing that stuff. And so it was sad when I found out that she had passed away. She was 95. She lived an amazing life. But when we lose someone who is important to us, when we lose someone who has shown a lot of care for us, it makes sense that we are sad. And when we're in a situation where we're dealing with the loss of a loved one and we're tapping on that loss, the goal is not to be emotionless, because the feelings of grief and sadness are useful. What they are saying is they are saying that something that is really important to me, I'm no longer connected to in the way that I want to be connected to it. All of our emotions are that. They're just information. They're just trying to convey something to us. When I feel angry, it's because I perceive an attack. When I feel frustrated, it's because a need or a desire is not being met. When I feel fear, it's because I perceive danger. And grief and sadness are that sense of disconnection. But our goal is to be in a situation where we have a proportionate, well-informed response. And so we're not stuck in that sadness. The example I use with my clients all the time is, if a loved one dies, it is appropriate for you to cry. If 8 years later you are visiting their gravesite 3 times a week, laying flowers and crying for 45 minutes, we've probably gotten to the point where that's a disproportionate response to that. And so know that this tapping that we're going to do today for loss of someone that we love is not about saying the feeling of loss is wrong, or about saying the feeling of sadness or grief are wrong. Instead, it's about putting ourselves in a position where we have a proportionate, well-informed emotional response so that we're not just gripped with sadness, but we can also feel appreciation. We're not just pointing to the loss, but we're able to celebrate all of the time we were lucky enough to have with that person in our life. So to begin with, what I want you to do is I want you to just tap on the side of the hand, take a nice big deep breath for me. And just tune into that sense of loss. Tune into someone you really care about. And I would encourage you in doing this sort of tapping is not to think about a lot of people at once, but think about one person at a time, because each type of loss, even if people were lost in a similar way at a similar time, the way we respond to the loss for those different people is different. And so to give ourselves permission to just tap for each of them one at a time. So take another nice big deep breath and just move from tapping point to tapping point, repeating after me. It is sad to lose someone I care about. It is heartbreaking to know I will never talk to them again. That I will never see them again. That I will never hug them again. That I will never laugh with them again. And it hurts to feel sad. It hurts to feel grief. Even though I know death is a fact of life, that doesn't make this any easier. That doesn't make this any less painful. I give myself permission to appreciate my loved one. I give myself permission to appreciate the time that we had. To appreciate the relationship we had. To appreciate everything that I learned from them. I give myself permission to just be present to that feeling. To simply take a moment and appreciate. Even though I will never see this person again, they are a part of me. Even though I will never spend time with them again, they are knit into the fabric of who I am. I give myself permission to celebrate that. To know how lucky I am to have had them in my life in that way. It doesn't feel like it's enough. It feels like I have been cheated. Wishing I could have had more time with them. No matter how much time I would have spent with them, I would feel that way. I give myself permission to grieve. I give myself permission to feel sad. It is human to feel that way. It is natural to feel that way. But this experience is more than just sadness. With sadness, I also feel appreciation. With sadness, I can still celebrate their life. I give myself permission to know that they will always be a part of me. I have a feeling that as you were tapping through this, even if you were focusing on one particular person, that you might have flicked from relationship to relationship of people that you have lost. That's completely natural. Certainly as I was just recording that, I had that sensation. And know that I was tapping along with you as I worked my way through my feelings as well. Not just for Pat, but for lots of people that I've lost along the way. This might be an audio if you are in a place of grief and mourning, where maybe every day or so for the next week, you just take a few moments and tap on this. It will make a huge difference for you as you move from a place of not just grief and sadness, but again to that place of appreciation and celebration. If you know someone in your life who could use some tapping like this, please be our ambassador, pass it along. Don't spam your inbox, but if you know a person or two who could use it, be our ambassador. The easiest way people find audio is through a recommendation from a friend. And so it would mean the world to me if you would pass this along, because there are lots of people who could use this who will never find it unless you are the vehicle of bringing it to them. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. In podcast parlance, subscribe does not mean payment. It is free. Yes, there are platforms out there that charge for some audio content, but even those platforms provide podcasts like this absolutely free. So you can find the podcast in Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, radio.com, Deezer, Radio Public. You could even find it on your Alexa. And I spelled that out so I don't fire this off if you happen to be listening to this in your living room at this moment. If you need help figuring out how to subscribe to the podcast on any of those platforms, just go to tappingpodcast.com, or you can drop me a note. I'd love to help you solve your technical problems so you can get access to the audio every single week. And if you're subscribed, when new episodes show up, they'll just be delivered directly to your mobile device so you can listen to them right away. You can always reach me, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. If you have a comment, a question, even a topic you'd like us to cover. Last week, the podcast came directly from a recommendation from a listener just like you. I would love to hear how the podcast can serve you and your tapping process so you can be happier and healthier and navigate in a way where you're eliminating self-sabotage and taking the action that you want. The Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.